Hello and welcome to Being Called to Love. I'm Sharon and this is my husband Chuck. Today, our subject out of faith, family, and food is going to be a continuance of our very first episode last week where we talked about what it's like to become foster parents and how that journey started for us. Today, we're going to talk about what those first few days with the children looks like from potentially their perspective from what we've witnessed after fostering 19 children. And we're going to talk about the adult's perspective, potentially from our own
Yeah,
experience. And then also, we'd like to just mention what it's like for other children that may already be in the home when you bring a new person into
right.
the family.
Yeah, lots to
So
talk about.
we do. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll try to keep it 30 minutes or less. And here we go.
Right.
So let's talk about it. We have fostered 19 kids over the years. We have adopted 8 of those 19 that could not safely return home. And last week, when we did our podcast, they had some follow up questions about what's that like when they first enter your home. There is a honeymoon phase,
Yeah,
potentially, where you don't really know exactly the child's behavior or their norm. And as these children get more comfortable, things change. But in the
right.
first few days, let's think about it first from a child's perspective.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's multiple perspectives.
Right.
I think often folks ask about what's it like for us, but we always try to put ourselves in the
What it would be
perspective
like
of
for the
the child. So,
child. This is a child who, for no fault of their own, all of a sudden, and it may be the middle of the night, it may have been, they might have been at school when they were removed. They may have been at someone else's house. They may have been in the hospital
right,
for a reason. And then some strangers come in, potentially there's some interviewing process, and then all of a sudden they don't get to go home.
right.
Whatever home looked like, whoever was there, they're separated from everything they've known
And,
as their normal.
and that removal situation may be very high trauma or it might be very mild. It may be something that that's come over time because maybe things that a family member has noticed or maybe a school personnel has noticed. So
Mhm.
very different dynamics for how that removal happens. And I think we should also talk about sometimes it's change of placement and that can have some different factors. But
That's
let's
right.
focus on
That's
just
right.
children who are first being removed from a
Their first
situation.
moments of their removal.
Mm.
Right. So, as Chuck said, it might be very traumatic. It may be during a police involvement
Yeah,
where they're seeing their mother or their father or whoever their caregiver is being put in the back of a police car.
right.
It might be a very traumatic event. It might have been a domestic violence
Hmm.
issue where the child has seen a very violent act.
Yeah,
It might be that the adults there were one of our children. The mother was intoxicated to the point of being passed out on the couch, and 2 children were out wandering around the neighborhood and were taken in by some women who saw them. And it took like 6 hours for them to identify where the children lived and had them in custody for 6 hours before the mom started looking for them.
right.
So there's lots of things. For them, they were probably glad to have a safe place and little ladies fussing over them. But then, police showed up, no social worker showed up, and then they didn't get to go.
Right.
So whatever event, in my opinion, Chuck, I think you can comment on this too. Whatever the reason for the removal, it is a trauma event for the child.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's separated from their home environment, no matter what the conditions are, and it's separation from the people who
Their
love
life,
them.
the people in their life.
It's
Yeah.
their family. So yeah, absolutely.
Or
Even if
maybe their
it's
pet even.
oh yeah,
Their
pets,
cat or dog. That's
everything
interesting.
familiar, good
Everything
or bad.
familiar.
And I agree that regardless, it's a trauma, and so we need to be aware of that.
Right. So I'll share with you on one of our children. It was the weekend before Thanksgiving. One of my oldest child and I were shopping at Sam's Club. Got a phone call, had 2 children in need. Would we take them? We said, sure, we would. It was Thanksgiving weekend. It was just going to be for a few days. They were going to go to a relative placement. That will often be what you think is going to happen. And so you might think you're only going to have these children for 2 or 3 days. And then as they investigate and run police background checks and that kind of thing, and where they think the child is going to go, sometimes there isn't a safe place with a
Right,
relative. That's called a kinship
right.
placement, right? Somebody
And
they know or are related to. and the child ends up being with you a lot longer than you expect. And that's something, as the adults that say yes to that phone call,
Right.
you have to be aware of
Yeah,
that it
you
may
don't,
not.
they have to vet that situation, that alternative placement, and see whether it'll work or not, and see if the other parties are willing. In
Right.
some
And
cases,
sometimes they
it
might
might
not
not
be
work for
able
them.
to. Correct.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. But from a child's perspective, we kind of got off track there. They're coming to a new home. What do we teach our kids? Don't get in a car with strangers. Be careful with strangers. And all of a sudden, all of these strangers are in their life, putting them in their car, taking them places, bringing them to a house that they've never been to before, with adults they've never seen before. Maybe they've never seen someone that looks like us. Maybe we're of a different race, and that might feel funny to them. We've experienced that. We have a multiracial household ourselves. There's just so many dynamics.
Different culture, different. Yeah, it's completely different.
What if they're afraid of a dog and the place where they're going has a dog
Yeah.
and they're afraid of dogs? There could be so many things. So the child walks in, they're kind of overwhelmed and wide-eyed at first, typically. Sometimes they will have not eaten. Maybe it's been 3 or 4 or 6 or 12 hours since they had the department has taken the child into custody. They've done everything they can do. Sometimes they start making phone calls. The department will start making phone calls to find a suitable home for the children, and they'll have to go through multiple phone calls to find a host home, a licensed home that's willing to take them. And what we've seen also is there's such an overwhelming need that often there aren't enough homes available locally, and they have to go out of county, sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 counties
Well,
away.
and I don't think we have been directly involved in this, but we certainly know it happens. Sometimes they have to sleep in the office for multiple days
Before they can find
a placement. Yeah,
So we don't know what the child's
they've
been
been
through
through.
before they
And
get to us.
even on a long day, like you were talking about, it's not as though I'm sure they maybe been given snacks or whatever, but still, it's not like a meal, right? And so they come in, they're bewildered, overwhelmed,
Experience trauma.
curious, probably anxious, again, depending on what they've come from, they may not have had a lot of exposure to other adults who are, looking to take care of them or be kind to them, or, they're
hungry, tired, scared.
Right. And all the things of probably in the
Angry.
back of their mind, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong?
So from a little child's eyes, you're coming into strangers in a land you've never been to. You went to a foreign land. This is the way I look at it. They're in a foreign land with foreign people they don't know, with foreign foods and smells and rules and laws, and they're just standing there overwhelmed. If you dropped me in the middle of Italy and I don't speak Italian and I don't eat seafood and I don't know where to go and where the bathroom is. I mean, they don't even know where the bathroom is. So when this child comes in, you don't want to overwhelm them and crowd them and get right on top of them. Hi, how are you? I'm Sharon. I'm so glad you're in my home today. This is Chuck. We had one little girl that on the way home to our house, we had picked her up at the Department of Child Services office. She said, "What am I supposed to call you?" She was very forward. And I said, "Well, my name's Sharon, and you can call me anything you'd like." And she said, "Mom, I'm going to call you Mom. Is that okay?" I said, "That's fine. You don't have to, but certainly you can." She's an adult now and still calls me Mom, by the way. She, on the way home, asked some very interesting questions, and this, I think, showed her anxiety and her curiosity. She said, "What are you going to whip me with?" And I said, "Oh, honey, I'm not going to whip you at all." She's like, "Sure you will." I said, "Oh, no." She said, "You're not going to use a belt or a spatula?" I said, "Well, do you know what I do with belts?" And she said, "What?" And I said, "We use them to hold our pants up." And she laughed right big and slapped her knee. And she said, "Well, then it's going to be a spatula." And I said, "No." I said, "Do you want to know what I like to do best with a spatula?" And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "Pancakes. I make pancakes. Now this will forever be in our house." And she said, "Pancakes, yummy." So now when I say I'm making pancakes, inevitably somebody will say, "Pancakes, yummy." But that was her trying to find out, what's the cost going to be if I choose bad behavior or behavior that you think is bad or unacceptable? Are you going to whip me, and what are you going to use? That told me she's been whipped, number one, and second, that it's been with a belt and a spatula. So my heart's aching right then. We get one of our children. We got our children home and we knew that it was an abuse situation, one of the foster children, and this child desperately needed a bath. So here's my perspective combined with hers. After a couple of hours of being there, it was getting close to bedtime. And of course, we talked about my other daughter in the home was going to take a bath. And when she's done, it'll be your turn. So I was telling her what's next. She had been playing and meeting the other three children in the home at that time and getting some bearings. Here's the bathroom. Here's where you're going to sleep. Here's where we eat. Here's our backyard. Here's our toys, that kind of thing. And trying to just understand that having her take a bath in our house, it's a new house, a strange environment, and we're asking them to take her clothes off. She was old enough she could go in the bathroom and remove her own clothing and that kind of thing. And I was showing her where things were in the bathroom. She started taking her clothes off with me there. And then I realized all of the backside of her. There were so many bruises and so much injury. And I, trying to keep a poker face, if you will,
Right.
I said, I'll be right back. I'll never forget walking out of that bathroom and closing that door and having to catch my breath. And Chuck was coming upstairs and he said, are you all right? And I was like, it literally looks like railroad tracks on her back and her buttocks and her legs. So I had to step away a moment and regroup myself. This is a child that I've just met a few hours before. I knew that she was coming from the emergency room for allegations of abuse and neglect and physical abuse. And then she just seemed so vibrant and bright when I met her. But then when all of the barriers were removed and there she was, I was so taken aback by that because all of my motherly instinct was, I have to protect this child. She's so fragile. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is what's happened to her. And so I'm quickly going through these things and trying to compartmentalize, if you will, to get it where I can do my job, which is to meet her needs, make her comfortable, not judge where she came from, but that was hard for me. That was a
Right.
really hard moment for me to see that.
Yeah.
That was hard. And we've had other things. So the first day they come in, you don't know what their personality is, right? We don't know if they're going to be kind or rude because they can be rude. Are they going to cuss? Are they going to spit? I mean,
Right.
or are they just going to be a frightened little being that needs safety and protection?
Right.
And
Yeah.
you're going to find that out pretty quickly.
As you know, I think all children, they push boundaries. So again, depending on the age,
Humanity.
just like the one child asking, well, how are you going to discipline me? They may not ask you how you're going to do things, but they may really push boundaries
to see
where you're going to draw a line and things. And so you really just have to kind of step back and give them some room or space. Of course, you may say, oh, honey, we don't do that. Here, let me help you with that. This is how we do that. Or, if it's behavior, you might say, hey, let's try something different. But you've got to kind of ease into it because you don't. I think your example of a foreign country is very true, and you don't expect them to, abide by all the rules of
the societal norms in
the
that
culture.
country.
And they come from a very different culture, and sometimes learning too. Like I never forget, we had a sibling group, brother and sister, that we were fostering, and they didn't understand that I was going to work.
I'll remember. You kissed me bye, you told the kids bye, and you were going out the door, and she said, where are you going?
Yes, I'm going to work.
And she said, what?
What's
and he
that?
said, work, I'm going to work. And she said, what's work? And we're like, this is the child that was in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And she did not know about someone leaving the home to go to work.
Yeah, that was not the culture of their home. That was not what happened in their reality.
And we were both kind of looking at each other like, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and that's an example of, you're going to have moments that are just like, you're so immersed in your norm that when it's different than their norm, sometimes you're kind of gobsmacked, as they say.
That's right. Well, and we had a child one time. I went in the first night. And again, here's something you should do. If you open your home, greet them gently. Hi, I'm Sharon. Do you like to come in? Come in. Would you like to have a seat? Do you want to sit down? And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no. And they're just kind of standing and afraid. Don't try to force them to sit down and say, well, if you'd like to stand there, that's fine. I'm going to go on into the kitchen and I'm going to have a snack. Walk on in the kitchen and look around what you've got for snacks maybe and say, I've got some cookies. Would you like one? Or would you prefer to have a banana? And that seems to be the thing that will most often create an opening, that
Hmm.
they most often will accept any age child we've seen would accept a snack, and that can give them something to do. Or I was about to sit down and work in my workbook. Do you like to color? I have some paper and pencils over there and some crayons if you'd like to do that. If you are going to foster, you have to just understand that they don't want you to come in and sit them down at the table and say, "How old are you? What's your favorite color? What do you like to eat? What time do you go to bed? Do you wear pajamas?" You can't, they're like, "Oh, it's too much." So it's our job to make them feel safe and at ease. I know a fostering friend that we had, a little girl came and she had so much head lice, and it was the middle of the night, the removal, that they sat out on the porch with her doing head lice treatment and combing through her hair on her front porch, talking about the stars and looking at the stars and the constellations and talking about that. And that fostered a love in that child for learning about stars and the galaxy and those kind of things. So
Hmm.
you can make it into a positive experience. What you don't want to do is, "Oh my gosh, you stink. You smell like smoke," or "Your clothes are so dirty. We've got to get those off and put them in the washer." You got to really think about how they're perceiving
Right.
our behavior.
And right. And how we respond to them, just like you gave the example of seeing the bruising on that girl, and you didn't respond in front of her, you stepped away. And I was just thinking when you were talking about the situation on the porch with the hair treatment, I thought, you don't want to demean, oh my gosh, there's so many bugs, or, it might be our natural reaction, but again, they don't know that there's a
Right,
problem.
right.
And with the smell, and I think that I know we're talking about arrival, that transfers into too when you have visitation and they come back from a visit, and so they will often smell like smoke, or maybe the parents brought them some of their favorite clothing and put on, and maybe it has a smell. We have to be very careful not to to declare,
Excuse me.
get that thing off of you. I don't like
Yeah.
that. That stinks. Oh, is this one of your favorite shirts? So let me wash it for you, and get
And
it very safe and
oftentimes that brings another point when you brought up their visitation. They may be crying, "I want my mommy. I want my daddy. I want my dog. I want to go home." That's hard on our heart because we know we can't meet that need. And there are times you have to say, "Honey, I just don't know the answer to that. But I promise I'll work on finding out. I can't tell you right now, but I'm going to work on that. We'll make some phone calls in the morning if it's the weekend or it's late at night or it's after hours. I'm going to make some phone calls tomorrow, and I'm sure going to do my best to get an answer for you. What
right.
can I do to make you feel better right now? Is there an activity you want to do? Do you want to maybe watch TV? A lot of these kids that come in, it's been our experience, have TVs in their bedroom,
Hmm.
or they sleep on a couch with the TV on, that a TV is a real anchor for them,
Hmm.
that that's something familiar. And I think too that they can kind of get lost in watching
Hmm.
Paw Patrol
Right.
and kind of leave all of this angst.
Right.
It's a diversionary maybe, and a comfort too. It's
Hmm.
familiar. So,
Or sometimes it might be, they might have a tablet or another electronic device, and that can be surprising too. I mean, we had a child that, in looking at their tablet, I found that there was lots of inappropriate material on there. And
adult
I had to
greater than R-rated
contact
website
uh,
caseworker.
the caseworker to turn it into them. The truth is, their norm is going to be very different than what our norm is, and we can't always perceive it, and we can't interrogate it out of them. I mean, we want to try to find, what they do like and
I
what they
think
don't like, but really just trying to find a way to explore and understand, what they're used to, and also then integrate them into, what you're used to. And the truth is, I think kids want to be known, loved, and connected, right? So I think acknowledging, who they are, acknowledging them as an individual, loving them, and connecting them to your what you're doing in your household really brings them a sense of belonging. And also, a lot of times you'll find they come from a very unstructured environment, and trying to provide some structure really helps them feel safe. Like if you talk to them about what's coming next later in the day, or what's coming the next
I think
day.
that's true with any child. It
Yeah,
no
yeah.
matter, they want to know what's next. And if you are preparing a child that It's afternoon. You know what we're going to do for the rest of the day? We're going to have dinner. After dinner, we're going to clean up. We're going to play some games. And we have a game cabinet there. Let's pick out. Do you know any of these games? Is there one you'd like to play? After the game's over, we're going to have a snack and brush teeth. And you don't want to give it all at once, but just kind of after we play this game, we're going to brush our teeth, get pajamas on, and read a book. And then when you're getting down to read after this book, we're going to say prayers and go to bed. They may not know what prayers are. So the majority, I think that our experience has been the majority of children that came into our care was because of substance abuse. I think everyone, honestly,
Well, I mean, even if it's a case of
except for the one
a
with
BB,
physical. Yeah. DV, domestic
but still
violence.
some,
In that, if you understand that the adult in their life has been battling with addictions, it's a horrible battle that if they've been incapacitated when they're caring for them because they've been intoxicated or finances are running really close, that the resources aren't available. They may have been homeless. They may have stayed from person to person or just moved a lot. There's a lot of chaos that they're used to a
instability.
lot of chaos sometimes, and to bring that into a more stable routine, that's something they may not be used to. So we can't be rigid in our
Right.
routines in our home. You're going to have absolute no's. You need to know what your absolute no's are and your absolute boundaries. You're not going to smoke here if you're a teenager. We're not going to smoke in the house. We don't do drugs, period. We don't drink alcohol, period. It's not in the house. It's not here. You won't find it. Don't ever bring it here if it's an older child. We've only fostered one older child and, well, two. We adopted one of the two, and it was hard. It was challenging. There was a lot. When they get older, I believe the older the child, the more difficult it is often because they've been through more and it's kind of a double-edged sword because an older child understands some of the things they've gone through and understands they're being removed and maybe even understands why. Where we've had infants, we've had one who was 13 months old when he was removed, went through 3 placements in 10 months before he got to us. You can't explain to a 13-month-old child why they're removed in any of the circumstances. They just have to learn to, figure it out day by day of why they are where they are, who's missing, why aren't I home, where's my mommy. He was really challenging. I think he's our most challenging child of all, and it's because of his circumstance. He's also got quite a personality.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, and I imagine in the future we'll probably do an episode maybe focus on difficult behaviors, trauma-informed behaviors, things like that. The other thing that you may not necessarily know, were there any in utero experiences,
Sure.
potentially if there's substance abuse involved, you may not know. Some of that can inform their behavior as well. And when you were talking about the older children, the other thing is they have a stronger understanding and opinion about what has transpired in their life. And so they will often be kind of vocal about that. And you have to, allow them that space because
Sure. Their
they're
feelings
older,
are real.
they have their
They're
narrative
valid.
is better formed and they're able to communicate about it. And so they may be more suspect about things because they've
They've
witnessed,
lived more life.
yeah, they've lived more
More
life.
life.
And so, they might not be as easygoing or as easily drawn into something, right?
There's so much to talk about in fostering and adopting and the early days versus once they get comfortable and the honeymoon period's over and you kind of really they feel safe enough to let their real feelings come out and really be who they are. They're not afraid. They're not trying to put on their best behavior necessarily. They let their
Right.
guard down a little bit and let some of those emotions out, and that can really be an upheaval. We did not touch on other children in the house. You're first and foremost, you don't know where these kids have come from. They're not bad kids. They just may live a lifestyle of, they may have been inappropriately touched. That may have been ongoing actively. They may curse. They may spit. They may
Hit.
hit. Things like that. So you have to be sure to really have your guard up when you take a new person into your home because you have to protect who's already here without showing a preference to the children who are already here. That'll be a real put off to the new child. By the same token, the people that are already in your home don't become invisible because you have a new child. Our children understood over time because it was just natural And all of our children except one started as foster children with us. And there were times we had foster children that were in the process of reunifying when we bring in a new child. So we wanted to be very careful that there was an even playing field between children that were already here and a child who maybe have just come in. We wanted to work very closely. We had one little girl who was really terrible to one of our other little girls. They were the same age. And I had to not let them be together out of my sight. I had to be where she was because she would just pick up a toy and whap my other one, who was a very docile and very gentle little creature. And this one was, you will do it my way or else I will become violent. So you have to be aware of keeping your home safe first and foremost. Yeah. And then one thing that we have made it our mission to do is try to get beyond what the behavior is and look at the why. Yeah. See if we can figure out, why is this what this child's doing? Did they just get back from a visit and they're feeling raw emotion? Is that because they moved around a lot and they're just expecting to move again, so they don't care to take care of anything because they're not going to be here long enough to care? We had one child that didn't connect well to people, but we saw she loved cats. She was crazy about cats. We brought 2 kittens in, and she loved the kittens, and that's how she loved. And we could see her being affectionate. That would never happen with people, but she would hold the cats in love. And so we met a need through an animal with her.
Yeah. And well, I want to add real quickly, like you mentioned, they maybe have been unstable and transferred around a lot. You can sometimes just an innocent conversation might trigger something. We had received a couple of children in a placement, and friends were trying to, or the agency was trying to help us with clothing, and Sharon was on the phone discussing clothing sizes and said, well, I don't really know what size she wears, and I'll have to check a tag and things like that. And the girl perceived that as, oh, you're talking to somebody about somewhere you're going to send me. And she was in this real strange mood, and we couldn't figure it out.
Crying. This is a child that we didn't see tears out of.
Yeah, so sometimes in innocent conversation that they hear, they might translate it differently.
She thought she had been bad, and so we were moving her. It's like, no, not at all. Not at all. We were trying to get new clothes for you. It was actually a Christmas party that each child through the department was going to receive an outfit and a gift. And so I needed to find out. She just got there a couple days before, felt like she was happy here and wanted to stay here, and thought we were moving her on. Yeah. And that wasn't the case. So we had to see, why is she acting like that? We figured out the why.
Yeah, so you have to just kind of have all of your antenna up and
all the time.
Situation.
Can't let your guard down at all.
Yeah.
Be very observant and question everything in your mind, not to them, but think, that's different. Why?
Right. Yeah.
What's going on here? Let's find
look beyond the
why. Get beyond the what and look at the why. I feel like we covered a lot of material. I think we saw some squirrels and went off track a little bit. We're both bad about that. Sorry. It's who we are. If you have a comment about today's episode, please leave it. If you have a suggestion on a topic that you'd like to talk about, if there's something you want more information about that we talked about today, we're not experts by any means, but we've lived this life and we're sharing with what we've been through and hoping we can help equip strong homes with your own children, with foster children, with adoptive children, as we explore subjects related to faith, family, and food. We say food because I've authored a couple of cookbooks, and my love language is feeding you. If you leave my house hungry, it's your own fault. What can you say? Anyway, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you again in a week. Well, I don't know when you're seeing this. Usually on Monday evenings, we have a new podcast out. Take care. Do something you love with someone you love.